our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm the Reverend Cassandra Hartley, and I have the honor of serving this congregation as executive minister. And I'm joined on the chancel this morning by many wonderful guests and our regular worship team. The Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti, our senior minister. The Reverend Theresa Rohlck, the director of our Chalice Bells Ensemble and our Congregational Chaplain. Carter Smith, our acting director of music ministries. Allison Halerz, our Pianist-in-Residence. Mike Halerz, our technology consultant, who's trying to hide back there. Quincy Northrup and Tom Sommerfeld, two of our wonderful chalice singers who gave us the gift of their music this morning and will continue to. Rick Witten and Kathy Edgren, who you'll hear from later. They are members of the board and co-chairs of the Vision 2050 Steering Committee. And last, but definitely not least, our very special guest, Bailey Whiteman, who is serving as our interim music consultant this year. If you're new to our congregation, welcome. And thank you for trusting us with the gift of your time and your presence. We hope you'll join us for social hour directly after service. There's coffee and donuts and a chance to get to know more about our community outside under the tent. And if you're not new to our community, thank you for coming back each week and offering the gift of your presence as well. It's amazing to think that this community has been gathering together week after week for over 150 years. I'm so grateful that we can continue to meet even throughout the pandemic, and finally now both in person and online. Of course, in order to make our in-person gatherings as safe as possible, we have some safety precautions, which include the requirement to wear our masks at all times, indoors and outdoors, unless you're actively eating or drinking outdoors. And unfortunately, it also includes not singing, which I know is challenging for a community that has singing in its DNA. Someday we are going to celebrate the return of communal singing with a huge party, as my kids would say, an epic party. But in the meantime, there are many other ways to actively engage in services. And 2 ways are coming up in the next couple of weeks. The first is next Sunday, which happens to fall on Halloween, which will make it extra fun. So the worship team has been hard at work preparing and brainstorming our Halloween costumes, and we hope you'll join us if you like by dressing up as well. We just ask that there are no scary costumes that might frighten little ones, and if you have weapons that go with your costume, we ask you to leave those at home. The following week, November 7th, we will honor All Souls Day and our monthly theme of memory by building an altar together. Please feel free to bring an object or pictures to represent the loved ones that you have lost. And together we will honor their memory, as well as the memories of the beloved community members we've lost in the last 18 months. Today we will continue our monthly theme of relationships by exploring our community's relationship with music. So I invite you to join us in this exploration as we move now into our time of worship together.
Good morning. As we continue to move into our time together this morning, our special guest who lives in the Metro DC area and is joining us in Ann Arbor this weekend, Bailey Whitman, will be assisting us in lighting our chalice this morning. In Unitarian Universalism, we light a chalice, a flame, at the beginning of our times together, our gatherings, as a reminder of that spark of love, the hope and possibility that resides in each and every one of our hearts, and how when we come together, we're doing that collectively, bringing together the power of collective love, collective possibility. In that spirit, would you join together in our community's familiar words of chalice lighting? We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Bailey. Communities such as ours, we are not bound together to one another or in spirit by a credo, by a definitive set of beliefs that we all subscribe to, but rather by our commitment to one another, our promises to one another to journey together in community, to companion one another in our own individual journeys of growth, learning, and exploration. We express this together, these promises, these shared commitments to one another in what is known as our community's covenant. Would you once again join your voices as we say together these familiar words, these promises that we make to one another? The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. May it always be so. We are so delighted this morning to have 2 of our Board of Trustees members, Rick Witten and Kathy Edgren, also co-chairs of our Vision 2050 process, in our pulpit, in our chancel, to share some words with you. Would you please welcome them into our pulpit?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Good morning. I'm Rick Witten, and I proudly serve this congregation as Secretary of the Board of Trustees.
And I'm Kathy Edgren, Board Trustee, and I can't believe I agreed to do this silly Zoom thing. Anyway, Rick and I are co-chairs of the Vision Steering Committee, and we're here today to introduce you to the gathering table events that will kick off on Sunday, November 14th.
First, a little background. For those who weren't here in the year before COVID, and a refresher for those who were, in early 2019, our congregation began a project of examining our hopes and dreams for UUAA with an eye toward the distant future of 2050.
We called it Vision 2050, and the findings were published in a document on our website called A Congregational Vision. The document outlines 3 priority areas and 3 foundational areas which together provide focus and guidance to our congregation, staff, and board.
In the fall of 2020, the Vision Steering Committee was created as a temporary subcommittee of the board, charged with helping the congregation to move forward with our Vision 2050 priority areas in a way that would have maximum impact.
And it has been a busy year. A team of 18 congregants and staff came together to serve on the committee. We interviewed many of our social justice and other group leaders, worked closely with our ministers and staff, and consulted with the board.
I don't even want to know how many hours of Zoom meetings we've had. But honestly, it's been great getting to understand the congregation better, to have so many meaningful conversations, and to feel a shared sense of purpose and commitment that has arisen from our vision, from your Vision 2050 efforts.
All those conversations allowed the team to understand UUAA's strengths and opportunities for doing work in our vision priority areas of climate action and justice, anti-racism, anti-oppression, and radical welcome. We have many strengths, and you might have seen them highlighted on the May 23rd service where we celebrated.
That May 23rd service was directly related to one of the opportunities identified this past year to create vision-focused annual events that the entire congregation can participate in. We think of it as the Vision 2050 calendar. This church year will be a time of trying some new ways of connecting, focusing, and reflecting. For example, the upcoming gathering table events that we want to talk about now. But first, just to be clear, the table part of gathering table is metaphorical. It's a metaphor for a place where we can gather together.
That's right. Gathering tables are chances for everyone to connect with the work of our vision priority areas. At those gathering tables, you will learn about the ongoing efforts and future plans of our many social justice groups. You'll be invited to share your ideas and discover how you can get involved in big or small ways.
3 gathering table events are being planned this church year, one for each of the vision priority areas. Each gathering table is an opportunity to come together as a community, to build community, and to make connections. You don't have to be part of a social justice group or even looking to be part of a group. Everyone is invited and welcomed, and your voice is wanted.
So the first gathering table will be on Sunday, November 14th, and will focus on climate action and justice. The Climate Action and Justice team has a fun and interesting agenda planned. Because of COVID, unfortunately, the meeting will have to be virtual, something we really hope to change in the near future. The Zoom event will start at 2:30, will run for 90 minutes, and will be an active event where your ideas and feedback are very important.
For those who come to the in-person service on the 14th, in the social hall there will be information, surveys, and fun activities to help kick off the gathering table. We encourage everyone to take part in all 3 of the gathering table events and are really hoping for a large turnout at the Climate Action and Justice event.
And this is a family-friendly event. Our Children's Sunday program on the 14th will include climate-focused activities, and your children are welcome at the gathering table. Since it's on Zoom, childcare will be provided right there in your home by you.
And to remind you, the event happens at dentist time.
Dentist time?
Yeah, tooth hurdy.
Oh boy. Well, thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please email us at vision@uuaa.org. We look forward to seeing you at the gathering table on November 14th.
At tooth hurdy.
Thank you both. Today's story, we all set? is called Change Sings, a children's anthem by Amanda Gorman, and the illustrations are by Lauren Long. I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. I'm a chant that rises and rings. There is hope where my change sings. Though some don't understand it, those windmills of mysteries, I sing with all the planet and its hills of histories. I hum with 100 hearts, each of us lifting a hand. I use my strengths and my smarts, take a knee to make a stand. I'm bright as the light each day brings. There is love where my change sings. I show tolerance, though it might take some courage. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge. I talk not only of distances, from where and how we came, I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings. Change sings where? There, inside me, because I'm the change I want to see. As I grow, it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs. I'm the voice where freedom rings. You're the love your bright heart brings. We are the wave starting to spring, for we are the change we sing. We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. We all hear change strumming. Won't you sing along? I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. The end. As we've been doing this whole month of October as part of our stewardship campaign, a member of the congregation has been speaking to us about their connection to this community. And so today, will you please welcome Ange Zaitsev as they come up to the pulpit and give us their story. Thank you.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. My name is Ange Zaitsev, and my pronouns are they, them, theirs. So one of the reasons that I keep showing up at the UUAA and why I keep donating my money is because of how welcoming this congregation is for LGBTQIA+ folks. When I look at who is on the chancel and who is given time and space and services, my heart is warmed to see fellow members of my queer community. When I hear messages that celebrate queer identity, I rejoice. This congregation has a long history of supporting and welcoming queer folks, from becoming a welcoming congregation in 1992 to Reverend Gale performing marriages the very day that same-sex marriage became legal in Michigan. We've selected multiple gay, lesbian, and bisexual ministers to lead this congregation. Our former director of music, multiple staff members, and many lay leaders identify as LGBTQIA+, and we welcome them and cherish them. I keep showing up because this congregation has a long history of welcoming lesbian, gay, and bisexual individuals, and because I have faith that this congregation can grow to be equally and radically welcoming of transgender, non-binary, genderqueer, agender, bigender, intersex, two-spirit, gender non-conforming, and all the gender outlaws among us. In this world, trans and non-binary folks struggle to find a place where they are welcomed, where they can pee in peace, where children can just play sports and have fun without being policed by their governments. We eke out small spaces where we are genuinely celebrated, where we can explore our fluctuating and transgressive identities safely. We live in a culture where the binary is deeply ingrained in our psychology from before the day we are born, where every choice we are offered is dichotomous. We've been trained to identify opposites as only one choice. We speak of man and woman, black and white, heterosexual and homosexual, good and evil. Unlearning our automatic instinct to see the world as binary options is a long and intentional process, and I believe that this congregation can do that work. I imagine one day will come when someone says that they're transgendered and they will be met with understanding and support. I believe that our men's and women's groups can have a more flexible definition of gender and welcome all who choose to be part of that community. I imagine that someday all our groups will include pronouns as part of their introduction scripts. I believe that if someone voices trans exclusionary opinions, that they will find no welcome for those words. I imagine that our kids and teens growing up in a world that is a little less rigid will find a congregation and space that encourages and provides resources for their exploration of self. I believe that we can be a space where someone goes by Jack one day and Jill the next, and we don't blink an eye. We do the work to rewrite our internal concept of that person and immediately start using their name and pronouns. This is why I donate my money and why I donate my time to this congregation, because I see the long history of lesbian, bisexual, and gay inclusion, and I believe we can do the same for trans inclusion. I, along with Chelsea Noble, Nikki Schultz, and Holly Ferris, supported by the lovely Kiana Dene, are working to revive this congregation's LGBTQIA+ group to be explicitly welcoming to trans and non-binary identities. If you want to find out about upcoming educational events around LGBTQIA+ identities or to join the Kaleidoscope community, you can email kaleidoscopeinfo@uuaa.org to be added to our mailing list, or you can find our Facebook group by searching for UUAA Kaleidoscope. Please join us on Zoom for the Transgender Day of Remembrance on November 20th at 2 p.m. as we honor those folks who have been the victims of transphobia and to consider how we can make this world safer for our trans siblings. All of us in this congregation have different visions and dreams of what this community can be. This is my personal vision. Whatever your vision is, if you have financial and economic privilege, I urge you to make your pledge to support this congregation, its staff, and its many programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ange. Sharon Salzberg, a Buddhist meditation practices teacher, says, "True giving is a thoroughly joyous thing to do. We experience happiness when we form the intention to give, in the actual act of giving, and in the recollection of the fact that we have given. Generosity is a celebration." Let those words just sink in a moment. Please know, if you are new, visiting, or still deciding if this is your spiritual home, you have given your time to be here. Your offering to us is your presence. And remember that each of us knows our own circumstances, our own ability to make or not make a financial gift, and what we are able to afford. Nowhere does Susan Salzberg say happiness is related to the amount of what is given. Whatever it is, time, food, money, companionship. She does say generosity is a celebration. And can we not use more reasons to celebrate these days? So let's celebrate two things. First, the weekly offering that will go to the many programs and ministries of this congregation. Each are worthy of celebration. You can give online at uuaa.org/giving. You can write a check and put it in the baskets at the back of the sanctuary, or you can show how tech savvy you are and text to give, and I promise that will make you happy. And next is your commitment, your promise in the form of your annual pledge. Your pledges are essential because they make up over 90% of the total budget for the coming year. Now, I know many of you are really, really happy because right now you intended to give, you gave, and you are now having a recollection of that giving. And some of you are just regular happy because you are at the I intend to give stage. And that's great. But really, why not be more happy? I encourage you to make your annual pledge as soon as you can. Make the pledge now, and you pay the pledge over the coming year. So why is this so important? We need to know how much money we will have to work with. And from that, we'll see what we can afford. That's a pretty simple description of how a budget works. Will we be able to afford to expand the important work we do here and dedicate time and staff and resources to the 2050 vision? Or will we need to cut back on what we're currently offering? Just think about what we at UUA can accomplish and what we have already accomplished. Stuff that makes a difference in the world. We saw that last Sunday in the Forum on Restorative Justice, and we saw how integral our music programs are to our spiritual well-being. And today, as Ange reminded us, how our commitment to the LGBTQIA+ people in this community has made a difference. And yet, as they said, we can do better with our radical welcome of non-binary folks. Funding all the programs and projects we are committed to depends on the annual budget, and the budget depends on your pledge. It's that simple. Someone is at a table just outside these doors in the hallway after the service that will help you with any questions at all you have about pledging. So let's find reason to celebrate. both your annual pledges and our offering today. And I thank you for your generosity. If you express happiness and celebration through movement, then by all means, you are invited to dance during the offertory. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance.
Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance.
Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like the willow with the wind. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance.
A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance.
Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And run we go again. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you.
The good times and the bad times too.
Let it be a dance. Thank you. Would you rise in body and spirit and join me in the words of our dedication of the offering? To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. Thank you. You may be seated.
Oh, it's just so beautiful to have music in this sanctuary. It just touches me so deeply. It is my distinct privilege today to be able to introduce to you somebody many of us have had a chance to get to know a little bit already, Bailey Whiteman, who is serving our community as interim music consultant. And I wanted to say just a word about what that might mean. Many of us are in our community familiar with interim processes, having just been through that following Reverend Gail Geisenheimer's retirement. An interim process is a recognition that when there's a transition, a staff change of magnitude, many of us might be feeling levels of grief or loss or uncertainty. It's an opportunity to connect with that, connect with the longer arc of our community's history, in this specific case, the music program's history, which is longer than any one staff person, connect with our hopes and dreams, the wildest hopes and dreams we can imagine for the future of our program, in this case, the music program. And all of that together, then in the future, not now, later, informing staffing analysis and staffing decisions. That process that I described, that is the interim journey. It's an arc, it's a trajectory that has that particular flow and sequencing. And we are so fortunate to have Bailey Whiteman as a guide, as somebody to nurture us along that arc and trajectory. Would you join me in welcoming Bailey into our pulpit this afternoon?
We tell stories to each other to while away the days. We tell stories to each other to keep the night at bay. About life and death and love and hate, as much as we recall. We tell stories to each other, and that is all. So, spin me another one, just like the other one. Spin me and show me the writing on the wall. We are dancers, romancers, answering the call. We tell stories to each other, and that is all. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. That's the wrong story. We tell stories for many reasons. Since I started working for and with you in September, my work has centered around listening to your stories, hearing how you describe UUAA, its music ministry, and your experiences within the congregation. Eliciting your stories is essential to the arc of interim work to which Manish just referred, an arc that includes integrating feelings, grief and loss in particular, gathering and reconnecting with your history, articulating hopes and dreams, and engaging in staff analysis. And I know that sharing stories feels vulnerable to some, slow to others, even just plain boring. I hear you, and this is the work. To tell each other the stories of UUAA so that we know them, so that we know the core stories that make up Unitarian Universalism and those that are particular to and part of the fabric of this congregation, so that we can grow and change, knowing that we have built a solid foundation. One story you have told me is how music is deeply important to you and the life of UUAA. You love to sing. You love music in worship. You love many kinds of music. You are a singing congregation, not merely a congregation of people who sing. And it is truly so hard that we cannot sing together right now. That is a particular loss that makes this time we're living through especially hard in congregational life. You've named that grief, and I share it. We have all been changed in some way by the pandemic, and the loss of that swell of voices, of a body of sound made up of many bodies, that is a change we are experiencing together. But you have not lost your voice. It's waiting, ready to sound again, once we can do so safely. Another story is about how different music directors have taught you so much, brought so much to the congregation,
and how grateful you are to have learned and grown together. Whether it's the incredible music Dr. Bill Albright helped create, the ragtime concerts, the musicals, his own hymns and other compositions, the children's choir begun under Sarah Albright, as well as the Easter Day Hats Parade, or the big sings Dr. Glenn Thomas Ride Out imagined into being. You have been blessed with music directors of exceptional talent and creativity. You've told me especially how much Glenn Thomas taught you to be better musicians, showed you that you could sing, that everyone can sing, and taught you the difference between being choristers and congregants and being part of music's ministry to and for each other. Music and your music directors have changed you. Change does sing.
We tell stories to each other, explaining history. We tell stories to each other, singing mysteries. We shine a light into the darkness. Shadows dance and fall. We tell stories to each other, and that is all. So spin me another one, just like the other one. Spin me and show me the writing on the wall. We are dancers, romancers, answering the call. We tell stories to each other, and that is all.
And so what else have we learned together? What other stories have we shared? You've begun to tell each other stories and dreams for what UUAA's music ministry can be, how it might be even richer and deeper. In the process of sharing these visions, you notice that there have been stories told, explanations really, about the limitations of music here. The area where the choir stands has room for 40 to 50 chairs. And so once we add chairs to the floor on the right, 70 is the most singers we can have. Sheet music is expensive, so we can only afford copies for a choir of 70. Now, money and space are finite, and there are many ways we can respond when we encounter these limits. You discovered that these stories of scarcity had become beliefs, and those beliefs have defined music in ways you long to move beyond. How many different kinds of ensembles might be possible? Could youth be integrated into UUAA's music ministry? And could music be integrated into the spiritual growth and development ministry? At least one of you yearns for a xylophone ensemble. I do too. Are the limits to the music ministry, in fact, merely limits of imagination?
We tell stories to each other that people want to hear. The devils and the angels dancing in our hair. We tell stories to each other of reason and of rhyme. Happy ever after, once upon a time. So spin me another one, just like the other one. Spin me and show me the writing on the wall. We are dancers, romancers, answering the call. We tell stories to each other,
and that is all. So let's tell each other more stories and discover what stories we hope to tell each other in the future. I'll be in the Jackson Chapel after the service. Won't you join me to share a story of yours? No one else can tell it. I'm listening. May it be so, and blessed be.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. 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 Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Thank you, Bailey, for such a warm and appreciative reflecting back to us some of what you're getting to know about our community and our history. I'm deeply appreciative. It was a few weeks ago at a worship planning meeting where we were looking ahead to upcoming Sundays and music and themes and topics. And as we were in the midst of that discussion and planning, the perfect possibility came to my mind to include in a potential service. And I had the exact visuals of how we do it. And I didn't even realize I had the body memory, the rhythmic movements and clapping that Dr. Glenn Thomas taught us. Somehow my body had memorized this. Something like that. And with that, the exact imagery of him first being over here without a word spoken, just modeling and teaching how to do that. And then stepping over here and doing the same thing. And everybody just joining into the teaching and the modeling in a participatory way. And my throat just caught. Because I miss him so much. Just yesterday, I was at our sibling congregation in Lansing, in the UU community there. They're installing their minister. They did install their minister. And as I arrived, my first time visiting this community, I hadn't even gotten out of the parking lot. I was just stepping out of my car when one of the congregants from Lansing approached me so warmly, enthusiastically. "Reverend Manish, so glad you're here. When is Ann Arbor bringing back the Big Sing?" What can I even say to that? I started fumbling and feeling my own sense of loss. For those who don't know, the Big Sing, it was a music festival, annual, that we hosted with many people coming from across the region to participate in. And I started saying to this congregant, this sibling from Lansing, you know, Dr. Glenn Thomas's, his persona, his embodied wisdom, so much of who he was and continues to be was deeply infused in everything about the Big Sing. I don't know that something like that could continue without him. It was so deeply a reflection of him. And I turned away, and after a moment, before I fully left, I turned back and I said, "Wait, but you know, Ann Arbor over many decades has hosted different kinds of music festivals. It's quite possible we will hold music festivals in the future. There's no way to recreate the thing that was, but I'm sure we can host music festivals in the future." I am actively working through my own grieving and processing, often in the moment, just as many of you are too. And if there's one thing that this pandemic has taught us, is that there has not been one experience of the pandemic. There have been many, many individual and highly varied and different experiences of the time that we're in, of this pandemic time. And the same is true with grieving and grief. I know, that in any community when there's a staff change, a transition, there are always some who have been more than ready for new leadership. They've been waiting for the opportunity for new leadership. And exactly on the opposite end from that spectrum, there are individuals feeling such depths of grief that they don't even have the words to string together to try and express what that grief means. And every possible way station in between. All of that exists and is a part of who we are today, right now. And so part of what we seek to do is to collectively acknowledge the existence and presence of grief, loss, and uncertainty. And beyond acknowledging it, create a collective holding together of that. This is something that our broader society, if we gave out letter grades for this, it would be a solid F, an F minus, if we could, to our broader American culture's relationship with feelings of grief, loss, and uncertainty. Our own history reflects this. We need look no further than 9/11. Horrible, horrible tragedy that evoked feelings of fear and loss and uncertainty. And what do? There's no communal, national, societal container for this. What are we doing? What are we actually going to do? Where are the people who look like they're Muslim American? Who's loading up the bombs on the planes? We make horrible, horrible decisions as a society and individually. We make horrible decisions when we deny, avoid, or try to skate around the reality of grief and loss and uncertainty. I love that Bailey made the reference to a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Many of you know I'm a huge science fiction fan, and one of the things Star Wars excels at, that whole franchise, that universe, the immense spiritual wisdom of some of the metaphors and the symbolism in the plot lines. Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. How and why? The mere possibility that he might have to navigate grief and loss, the uncertainty of that is so overwhelming to him. He can't even find a way to do it. And so what happened? We know the iconic symbolism of the character of Vader. One version is this. Here's the other version. The tight closing of the fist, the squelching of the very natural human emotions of experiencing grief and loss and uncertainty. He squelches it in that denial and avoidance, the tight fist trying to destroy the thing that feels so overwhelming. And what happens to him? A complete warping of his personality. The denial of natural human feelings and experience, leading to a warping of human personality. It implies that the solution is not the tight grip, but the relaxation of it. And if and when we can, start to relax the grip, the desire to control and squelch the thing that feels hard and overwhelming, we can begin to see that the intensity, the feelings of grief, loss, uncertainty, they can color and tinge everything. We are not able to discern clearly, to see clearly, when we're either avoiding, denying those emotions, or still at the beginnings of actively working with them or processing them. They tinge everything. There's also no one timeline for grief. I think of my first minister, this is over 20 years ago. Such an amazing human being, this man. I was an ordinary congregant like many of you, and I would watch him speak from the pulpit with this fierce vulnerability and authenticity and integrity, and it just deeply touching me and inspiring in me this sense of, wait, that's possible? You can live like that? In front of large groups of people, maybe my heart wants to do something like that. I don't know, he seems to be modeling it. And then finding the trust to share that very, very tentative idea with him, and him responding saying, great, yes, you should be a minister. He hasn't been my minister in over 20 years. And I miss him so much. We grieve hard for the loss of individuals who have inspired and touched us, and there is no specific timeline to that. I could ask us to raise hands. I won't, because I don't need to. I already know the answer to what I'm about to ask. But if I was about to say, how many of you are similarly still missing Reverend Gail Geisenheimer? I know. I know you are. How many of you are still missing Reverend Ken Pfeiffer? You don't have to raise your, I know, believe me, I know. How many of you are missing Bill Albright with all his brilliance? Love of ragtime music. My gosh. We add to that list now Dr. Glenn Thomas. Being honest with ourselves about our feelings of grief and loss and uncertainty, it's not the final step, it's the first step. It's the first step, because culturally, we are encouraged to deny, avoid, and skate around it. What we're allowed to do is be angry and frustrated. The harder thing is to cry with others, certainly in public. So even just admitting to ourselves that there is the reality of grief and loss and uncertainty, it is the first step. And it's a deeply necessary one. It was many years after seminary, I was pursuing doctoral work in psychology, and I took a grad class on just the topic of grief. The stuff we don't learn in seminary, my gosh, it's immense. Bailey has heard, as have I, individuals in our community saying, I feel like I'm grieving for somebody who's died. But he's not dead, Glenn Thomas, he's not dead. But I feel like I'm grieving as if that hard, right? By the way, my minister, who hasn't been my minister for over 20 years, God, I just said that, notice, my minister, right? He's alive, he's not dead. From the foremost researchers in this field is called ambiguous grief, ambiguous loss, because it's not an actual physical death. And yet we experience it as if it is, with as much intensity and reality. From the researchers in this field, Sophia Caudley and Stephanie Sarazin, ambiguous grief is the grief experienced from the loss of a loved one who is still alive, and yet there has been some profound change or even symbolic death in the relationship. That should sound familiar. We most often in community experience this when there's a changeover in ministerial leadership, but it's not only about ministerial leadership, it's about individuals who have mattered deeply to us. Side by side with the reality of ambiguous grief, there's a concept known as complex grief. This from the Mayo Clinic. Now this is grief, which is characterized as continuing for more than 12 months. And it exists side by side with a rumination, an ongoing rumination of what has been lost and the inability to get it back. Does any of this sound familiar? An ongoing longing for what has been lost, even a pining away for it, often expressed with a sense of bitterness that what has been lost must even be endured. The minister I felt symbolically kind of in love with, who modeled for me the ministry I wanted to embody myself over 2 decades ago. And still that longing and yearning in my heart is so real and alive. It is very common in community to be navigating experiences of both complex loss and ambiguous loss, and sometimes they're right together, mixed in together. The only way forward through these experiences is to do the opposite of the squelching and control reaction, the Darth Vader death grip. Relaxing the hand, turning it over, looking at what's there, developing maybe even a friendship or relationship with it as we find a way to move through it. This is what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross describes as the stages of grief. The most familiar one, the easiest one to access, of course, is anger, because anger is culturally accepted. But we bop around between the anger and frustration. Why did the person have to take a new job in a different town? Didn't they know I loved them? To the wanting to just weep. I don't have anybody to create that magnificent big sing experience for me. And I only got to do one of them? Oh. To the bargaining. Can't we just get back a little bit? What about just getting back a little bit of what that person used to do? Can't I negotiate that with you? We go through those stages of loss, bopping between them. They're understanding that there's no timeline. It may take years and decades of returning to and experiencing grief and loss in a variety of new and deeper ways over time. And yet the benefit of honestly being present to our experience, as opposed to denying it or avoiding it, is the clear seeing that emerges. The ability to look at the reality in its fullness with clarity, because what that clarity opens up is possibility. Here's what I can be, what we can be together, unencumbered by trying to recreate what has previously been. From a place of grief and loss and attachment to the grief and loss, we can look at possibility with fresh eyes. And the freshness brings joy, because it's about co-creation. This is the possibility and the path when we step into this work, which is truly hard. It's my work, your work, our work together. May we enter it, move through it well.
To be bold, to be brave, We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace. We are war. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other.
Would you rise with me, please? Oh, I love you. I love you. Take a look around you and see who the beloveds are next to you. Wave at them. I know y'all love each other too. Look at those cameras right there. Wave at the cameras. We love you too, wherever you are, wherever you're joining us from. What makes being human possible, despite all these challenges, all these things that can feel so hard, is this. We don't do any of this alone. We don't have to. That's what makes it doable. Go forth into a new week. You are held in this community's embrace with so much love and tenderness and care. Go forth trusting that and knowing that deeply and well until we are together again. And for those of you who want to engage in some more deeper conversation with Bailey Whiteman, join us in the Jackson Chapel for a few minutes to get to know Bailey and share some dialogue and conversation. I hope you'll do that. Go in love and peace until we are together again.